Hi, everybody. Welcome to Café on Tampa Online. This afternoon, we are privileged to have two representatives of the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay, Marlene and Jesse. Marlene, tell us about the Community Foundation.
Sure, and thanks for having us, Bill. And thank you to all of you who are listening in for your interest in our work. The Community Foundation was founded 30 years ago now by Tampa area business leaders. The first gift to the foundation was $100. Today, our assets approach 300 million. But what we're most proud of is that over that 30 years, in excess of $260 million has been granted out to nonprofits in our communities. And we're so proud of that and the generosity of our community people. The Community Foundation has a large footprint geographically. We serve 5 counties, Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus counties. In order to do that well, we have regional councils, the Tampa Metro Area Council, the South Shore Council, the Pinellas Council, and the Nature Coast Council. Those councils are made up of people who live in those communities, who advise us on our grant making and help keep us connected to nonprofits. Our funds are we have over 1,000 different funds of different types, primarily donor advised funds, family foundations, scholarship endowments, and community endowments. And it's from all of those funds that we manage and invest while we hold them that dollars can go out to community as needs arise. That's us in a nutshell, Bill.
Can you explain, so if a high net worth individual is watching or watches this and they want to give away money or plan to give away money in the future, why should they choose a community foundation versus setting up their own?
There are a number of advantages actually to having a fund at the Community Foundation rather than a private foundation. And that's why a number of private foundations have actually moved their assets to us. There are financial advantages. The rules are different for donor advised funds or family foundations within a public charity than they are for private foundations. You don't have a 5% obligation to give out each year, so you can build money over years to give out larger gifts. The deductibles are higher for gifts to donor advised funds, and you can also retain complete anonymity if that's your preference for grants that you make. The assets that you bring in are governed by the Community Foundation, but we do allow outside managers if you have someone who you'd like to have manage your assets of your foundation with us. And we put a lot of programs around our funds, but really the biggest advantage is what Jesse does and his team. It's the guidance and the support of our impact team, our grants team, that help people make smart decisions about their philanthropy. And that's the major reason why people work with us rather than trying to do it independently. Giving away money on your own is not an easy task.
Yeah, it seems like the 5% alone could be a main reason why somebody would want to do this, right? I mean, that's a pretty big deal depending on what's going on in the community. But also, Jesse, can you tell us in general terms what you and your department do, and then we'll after that we'll talk about COVID-19 and what you're doing.
Sure, and I echo Marlene's comments. I've been at the foundation now for a little over a year and a half, and I would say giving the money away is probably the hardest job I've ever had. You would think, wow, it's a great job. It's, you're giving money out, and it's great for cocktail conversations. But it's hard work, and, it's hard to be very strategic. We have a great honor. Our biggest value is donor intent. So we're making sure that we're spending money in the community that's wisely and responsible, making sure that it in fact results in an impact in the community and are in the wishes of our donors as we go through that process. So my team really is making sure that we're finding the best strategic investments in the community. I mean, we think about ROI, not so much on a financial sense where we're going to get money back on our investments, but we're going to get impact back in the investment. So that's really our strong focus, is making sure that we have good ROI, what we're doing, and impact in return for spending and investing those dollars.
So when I was in graduate school, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
When I was in graduate school a long time ago, they talked about how they compared the for-profit and nonprofit sector, and they talked about the capital markets, and said what the capital markets really are is a place to bring relatively consistent information. So it's really it's exchange of capital, but it's an exchange of information. And the problem that the nonprofit sector often wrestled with is how do we measure ROI, because there aren't that many standards. And a donor may come and say, well, a mentoring organization that impacts 10 kids is doing less than a group that impacts 1,000. But then you have to dig below that. And so, how do you figure out the relative effectiveness of a nonprofit or an investment?
And it's difficult. And my background is in measurement and evaluation. I worked did my education at the University of South Florida in their College of Education and Measurement and Evaluation. And I think that's one of the reasons I was recruited into this role.
Absolutely, yes.
Really to make that connection on how do we begin to measure that, because it's not easy. And so often historically, giving philanthropy has been about passion. For years and years, it was about, I'm giving this because I'm passionate about kids. So I'm giving the after school programs, or I'm giving to education, or I'm giving to the elderly, or animals, or arts and culture. That really has changed over time. And our fund holders, our own philanthropists, believe that the money they're giving out, we need to show a return on that investment from an impact perspective. So we work real hard in that space. Part of it is us working with our nonprofit, the community, to help educate them in better ways to measure and suggest measurements for the work that they do. It's really beyond process metrics. And we're no longer looking at how many people were served or how many people were impacted by a certain amount of dollars for a project. It's really getting down to how were their lives changed, and starting to pull some of those data and metrics about what was the change. Not just that somebody did an after school program, but how did that improve the lives of those children? How did that impact their behaviors? How did it impact their attendance at school, grades, those kinds of things?
You offer that information or advice to folks that aren't invested with you all? Is any of that information available?
We do research on reports. Even prior to COVID, we had 5 strong focus areas that we were putting a lot of energy in, and we did a lot of research on those areas to make sure those were important things in our community and that those focuses were going to result in change. So we do share information. We take to heart that our name begins with community. We're very big on collective impact. We do a number of things that bring leaders in the communities together to have discussions about how to improve. We believe we're a catalyst for change in the community. And even some of our work in the education space around LEAP Tampa Bay, we're proud to be the backbone organization to sit down with our educational institutions, St. Petersburg College, Hillsborough Community College, University of South Florida, our school districts, and have routine meetings to sit down alongside business and government and philanthropy and talk about how to improve education. It's that whole expression, it takes a village. It takes more than a single institution that's going to result in change. And philanthropy is a big part in helping to be a catalyst for change in our community.
Overall, our intent is to help build a better community. And we have resources to lend to that, but we realize others do as well. And we try to work collaboratively with other funders to do that and accomplish ends. We have close alliances with many other funders in our area.
And just for anybody who doesn't know about the 2 organizations, how are you different or similar to the United Way?
The United Way gathers money differently. They work directly with businesses to encourage employee giving out of primarily payroll deductions. We work individually with donors themselves, directly with them, and also with the professional advisors for whom they are clients. Professional advisors are really important. Lawyers, accountants, wealth advisors are all important to our work because they bring clients to us who are charitably inclined and want to work through that. We hold endowments, so all the money coming in doesn't go all out. As you heard, we give away a great deal of money every year, but we're also holding what I call our community endowments for all these nonprofits who are so essential to our work. As this COVID virus pandemic started, we released endowment distributions to 211 different nonprofits totaling $1.64 million. That'll go out that same amount again in September as we make a second distribution from this year. So those are how we work differently, I would say, than from United Way.
So I want to get a Jesse talking about your COVID-19 response, but first I want to say to everybody watching, Café con Tampa style, if you have a question, if you're watching on your phone, post it underneath the video feed. If you're watching on your computer, post it to the right, and we'll try to get as many questions as we can. Jesse, tell us about what you've been doing besides what Marlene just mentioned to respond to the COVID-19 crisis.
So we've been busy. I thought we were busy before. When I first took on this position, I was told, well, we're a little slow in the summer. We may be slow on Fridays, and that never really came to fruition with all the work we've done over the last year and a half. But I feel like we've even stepped it up a notch. And over the last couple months, we immediately stopped what we were doing. We were actually in the throes of a competitive grant cycle. We had gone down from 278 letters of intent down to 83 applications, and we're ready to name our 30 finalists, and actually a week away from a board meeting on which we were going to have them approve the funding of those 30 organizations. And this crisis occurred in our community. We immediately stopped that process. We're going to resume that process come fall and have conversations with those organizations that were finalists as part of that process. But we immediately took those funds and we began to build the Tampa Bay Rapid Response Fund. And many organizations in the community have funds. This was our fund to begin to put that work together. And we actually use that money to help direct and amplify contributions from our own fund holders. We actually created a match program where for every $3 they put towards a need in the community, specifically our nonprofit needs request list, we would add another dollar in that, and we use that funding to begin that process. So we wanted to find a way to figure out what the needs were in the community immediately. We didn't want an elaborate competitive grant process that was going to take a lot of review and a lot of time to get dollars out of the door. And we really wanted to leverage our relationship in the community. So we created a nonprofit needs list, a simple process, and not an application process, not a competitive grants process, but a simple way for nonprofits to communicate with the Tampa Bay community at large about what their needs are. Simple 7-item form, and that's just been building and building over time. In fact, now we have 487 nonprofit needs requests up on our website, and for a total request of over $21 million in requests in the community. And we've kept this very public, so it's not something that they submit that no one sees. If you go to our website, you can actually scroll and scan and search through that information and see each one of those 487 requests. We then, to again direct and amplify the work of our own fund holders, which is really our philanthropic power, if you will, at the Community Foundation, we created that match program and began to direct those dollars towards those specific needs. So to date, we have fulfilled 142 requests for funding for those at an amount of about $1.6 million. So pretty good work in about 8 months. And to give you an idea, for those 142 grants, our competitive team would normally do about 30 a year, and we've done 142 in the last couple months. So
8 weeks. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it was 8 weeks or whatever. Yeah. So, a lot in a very short period of time. But it's given us a real pulse on what's going on in the community, a real understanding. And what we really like about it is we found other private foundation areas have come alongside us and began to fund items on the list. Because again, it's not our list, the list belongs to the community and us working together to try to fulfill those needs, help those nonprofits so they can help, some of the folks that have the most needs within our community.
That's great. Like in 6 months or so, we'll have to have you back and tell us how it went. By the way, again, for anybody watching, if you have any questions, post them underneath the feed if you're on your phone, or to the right if you're on your PC. Also, if you're watching now or live or sometime in the future, please share this to your Facebook feed, because all of us are part of nonprofits that need to know this information. Some of us know people who can be investors in a community foundation, but it's important information for all of us to know, and we want to make sure that we want to share everything. Let me ask this question. Somebody just asked a question. Can you? They say that. Can you comment on the recent lease Community Foundation signed on Central Avenue, downtown St. Pete? What will that space be used for?
Yeah, we're really excited about that. We have a principal office in Tampa, right on Cypress Boulevard, the Meridian 2 building. We also use facilities through an alliance for advocacy and philanthropy that we formed with Stetson Law School this year. We have access to their facilities, both in Gulfport and Tampa. And then the newest addition to our convening space is this office that we're going to be opening toward the end of summer in St. Petersburg. We do a lot of work in Pinellas County and St. Petersburg specifically, and this will allow us to be closer to that work and to get even more involved in the community there. But it also will be a space, a coming together space. That's how we've designed it for nonprofits to use and others that are pursuing projects that will benefit the community. It's in the building that houses the James Museum, right on at street level on Central Avenue, and the sign is up, and now the construction will start soon to finish the interior. We're super excited about that.
Yeah, great space and an outstanding museum, great food there. We have several people who are involved in the arts, especially some St. Pete arts people. What all do you do? You talked about social services in response to COVID-19. What are your donors, or what does the foundation do related to the arts?
We do a lot. A lot of our donors have are primary funders of arts programs, and they're very concerned at this time during this pandemic. Many artists are struggling, and especially our performing artists and the venues that hold them, but also our museums, aquariums, galleries. You know, it's been very difficult for the arts, and I know arts and entertainment are among those industries hardest hit by those pandemics. So we've had a lot of money going out to arts, artists, cultural organizations, and certainly we'll continue to look for ways to augment that. I don't know, Jesse, if you have more detail.
And that's certainly a trend that we saw. You know, I mentioned there's been, you know, there's 142 grants that have gone out towards those items on the nonprofit needs list. Many of those on the front end were in the space of basic needs. And even today, about 40% fit in that basic needs category. But we've really seen a trend in the arts and culture area. In fact, we're up to 11% of those grants that have gone out are in arts and culture. So certainly as we've had the immediate impact of the crisis, and that's gone on over time, certainly people are much more aware of the impact on this in arts and culture and how important that is as a component within our community, and how they're some of the hardest hit that we're facing right now.
What are some of the other kind of unique policy areas that you all look at, like nonprofits or issues that most people wouldn't have heard of that are kind of interesting? Any interesting stories you could talk about?
Well, the recent act, the Paycheck Protection Program, you know, that was something that was offered to nonprofits as well, and in some cases a lot harder for them to navigate than even small businesses through that process. So, you know, I want to mention one other group who has done a lot of work in the community, and that's Social Venture Partners. They're a fund of the Community Foundation in Tampa Bay and do a lot of work directly with nonprofits. And they have a site they've put together called tampabay.svpcares.org. There's about 280 nonprofits that are in that site that tell the stories of some of the things they've dealt with and impact, both from a financial perspective as well as the issues in terms of volunteers. So that's some good information to review, but they did a lot of work in that space and continue to do a lot of work from the kind of the mentorship program. So a lot of those are folks who have had, you know, great careers in business now that are taking that skill set and applying it to help nonprofits. And they put on a number of webinars specifically in this space as we were going through the front end of that program.
We believe that it's so important for our community to be vibrant, that all the sectors are working together: business, education, nonprofits, philanthropy. And so in our work, we try to model that. Our Leap Tampa Bay Access Network that Jesse mentioned is a collaboration, Hillsborough and Pinellas counties, toward graduating more people through credential programs or degrees. We have a goal of 60% of our working age adults by 2025 are going to be holding those post-secondary credentials, and we take that work very seriously. It puts us in touch with representatives, leaders of all of those different sectors. So we work in tandem with them toward any way that we can help mobilize people toward both policy changes as well as financial support in the community.
Great. And what about economic development? Any involvement in that? I mean, directly, I know everything you do kind of ties into it, but is there anything directly that's involved with economic development?
Well, I was asked to help out with career source leadership, leading the way for the county of Hillsborough in putting together a response to this pandemic regarding employment. And because a part of the work we do is certainly closely related to education and training, and that we have a lot to offer in that space as well, and have made, I think, some contributions to that. So it's our community leadership born out of our knowledge of both sides of things. We're a connector, and we like to connect needs in our community to people that have the resources to help. So in that role, we do that kind of work.
Another thing in the kind of the economic development space, I think is a strong partnership we have with the Tampa Bay partnership, and some of the work that we have done around the state of the region, or you probably may be familiar with the Regional Competitiveness Report, which part of that work's a partnership with us. With the partnership, United Way is also USF, College of Business, College of Business, where we're working on really getting data metrics out in the community to get change. And one partnership that exists between LEAP and the Tampa Bay partnership is Tampa Bay Works. And that's really focused on different areas, specifically right now in the areas of manufacturing and healthcare, and in terms of finding what their most needed positions are and how we can work together as a community across business and education in those industries to get folks on the right pathways to be successful. And from the business perspective, to get the right quality employees up into their tracks, ultimately to leadership.
We only have a few more minutes, so last chance for anybody to ask a question. If you have a question, post underneath or to the right. And if you haven't already, please share this to your page so that your friends and nonprofits and others can see it. I want to ask another question, kind of comment. You talked about data, and thank you for supporting that regional bench report. Yeah, it's a really important piece of information. And I'm also on the Florida Chamber Foundation board, and they put out the Florida scorecard. Working with MOAS at USF, I put out one called Tampa scorecard, and I think the one you fund, Rick Holmans and MOAS and team, are going to start putting out city-only data. But back to the thing we were talking about earlier, if there's not complete information, people don't know where they're going. With a company or with the capital markets, you can see the basic P&L and balance sheet, and ideally that the information is correct. But when you're looking at things like economic development and poverty, the numbers are there, but sometimes people cherry pick numbers to make themselves look good. Sometimes they pick different things. And most often when folks talk about how great Tampa Bay is, or how great Tampa is, it's really MSA regional data, not City of Tampa data, which is why anybody's curious about how Tampa does, go to Tampa scorecard. But thank you all for funding that. And any other data areas you need, I think the data is essential for us to be able to all get on the same page about what the issues are and then how to address them. Any other data areas you'd like to fund or you want to get going?
I think data is critical, but I think even beyond the data itself, and you mentioned, being a statistician, you can do a lot with numbers. But the reality is you have to come up with a set of metrics and definitions, data definitions that the community can agree on, and gain some trust in what those metrics are before you can get to the point of saying, where are we and where do we need to go? And I think the Regional Competitiveness Report and the number of, 3 years it's been out now has helped kind of define what are those community agreed upon metrics that we can now look at in the form of a scorecard and begin to say, we're not where we want to be. We're comparing ourselves against 19 other, similar communities within the country. We're often not at the top of that list. But we now have set metrics, we now have a place to start, and we now can begin to look at targets and things that we want to do going forward. And I think that's the kind of the next evolution from the work that we're doing.
Go ahead.
For a community to put out data that doesn't put us at the top of the list or doing everything right. But this community is courageous, and I think it's commendable that we are a community of leaders who want to look at the real truth, who are addressing where our shortfalls are, and certainly celebrating those areas in which we excel, which are many. So I think that coming together with that understanding is really important and has helped us move ahead in this area.
Yeah, thank you all again. I had Rick Holman's on here for the Tampa Bay Partnership a couple of weeks ago, and it really takes a lot of guts to present the information like he has and you all have. And I think serious people want to know what the real information is. But what I'm most interested in, and Moaz has promised me, is the predictive analytics, and we especially need it now, looking at maybe 20-25% unemployment. The idea being that if we can provide some input, even if you have $300 million, it still can't fix all the problems. So where do we put the right amount of money, right amount of resources at exactly the right moment to try to impact the future in a very positive way? And so I hope to geek out with you all about that at some point with USF as well. Any thoughts or comments on that?
We begin to have a lot of those conversations, and Marlene's helped kind of lead us in this direction of, what's next. I mean, you hear the term new normal applied a lot, but the reality is many things are going to change. And we need to now be thinking about, not just economic in terms of folks are out of work now, and at some point, whether it's a U curve or a V curve, we're going to have that change. But the reality is, how is the world going to be different? How are things, we're having conversations about telemedicine and telemental health, and how are those things going to be different? How is the world going to operate with what we've just experienced and as we go forward? And I think that's, I get excited about predictive analytics and have spent time when I used to work for the college, we used to do a lot in that space. But what predictive analytics somewhat's based on is past performance. And it takes other factors into consideration, but a lot of it is past performance. I think we're entering a new space. And while I look forward to having some predictive analytics, and we're having a lot of conversations about AI, and even AI's trouble with tracking some of these changes, again, because the platform is based on historical data, I think we're going to have to come together as a community to have a better understanding of what things are going to look like, and how the needs that we have are going to dramatically change even when the economy improves. And what are we going to do about it to support our community?
Hopefully that means we'll keep our jobs longer because we think ahead of the AI. Hey, so we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming on today. Any final thoughts or recommendations? And before you go, please make sure you say your website and tell anybody who's looking to invest or set up a foundation how they can contact you all and talk to you about going through the foundation, the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay, and also nonprofits, how they would get on your list or how they would contact you.
Directions for getting on the nonprofit needs list is right there. It's very simple, and we urge all nonprofits who have needs related to the virus pandemic to post exactly what those needs are. And we invite anyone with money to spend charitably to take a look at that list. Those are the expressions of needs directly from the nonprofits themselves. It's about what they need. And so it's really important that you all do that. Anyone wanting to get in touch with us, our website, cftampabay.org, is the best place to start. But I'm happy to give out our phone numbers as well, or our email address. I can be reached at mspalten@cftampabay.org. But it's easy to contact us. We are working remotely, but there are members of our staff that go in every day to send out checks and receive them and keep things working in the office. And we look forward to being together again soon when we're able to do that.
Well, thank you all again for coming on board. Thank you everybody for watching, and thank you all for what you're doing in the community, and look forward to getting an update maybe in a few months to hear how it went. Take care.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right.